All right. All right. All right. Well, this is me doing a live stream on a Saturday afternoon. I was actually expected to work today, but the boss basically gave me a day off. So it is the Labor Day weekend, and I'm happy to be on here this afternoon. For anybody who comes across this stream, I am Forrest, host of the Pancake King Life and Marriage on the Spectrum podcast, the YouTube channel, the Pancake King Autism podcast, and I also have a Substack at thepancakeking.substack.com where I pretty much keep almost everything that I make between the blog posts and the podcast. So yeah, this is just me doing a little live stream to kind of maybe talk about some stuff, hang out, chill out. It's kind of funny because I wasn't expecting to get a day off today, so when I did, what's interesting about that is on one hand there's like a part of my mind that is basically like, oh, okay, great, you have a day off, so you just have this unexpected day off. Now you can do this, and this, and it's like my mind is just listing off all these things I can do. And then the other part of my mind is like, yeah, but have you heard of this thing called sleeping? What about sleeping? Your body is like, you already had it. Yeah, we had one, yes, but what about second sleep? I had one last night, and it would be nice to have one again. But instead of doing that, I went to a secondhand video store this morning with my brother, grabbed a few movies, and now I am streaming on YouTube. And, that's fun. So, let's see. I'm just kind of mulling over a couple things. So the last couple of weeks, I've been posting more consistently on my Substack, which was one of the goals that I had set for myself for the next few months. That for the next few months, I will be making sure to have an article published every week on my Substack, which actually used to be the case until it came down to, well, whenever I really feel inspired. But now, I've actually been working on just getting an article done every week, seeing what happens, and I want it to be more comedy driven. Basically, is what I'm thinking. Is like, I want my articles and even my videos / podcasts or whatever to be more comedy driven. I have been kind of like throwing around the idea of trying stand-up comedy for a while. I want to be funny. One of the things that brings me the most joy is when I make other people laugh. And not because I accidentally did something, I guess that's a plus, but not because I accidentally did something unintentionally that made people laugh, but because I want people to laugh, so I say something to make people laugh, or I do something to make people laugh. That tends to bring me a lot of joy. So my last couple of articles on my Substack has been mostly comedy-driven, kind of pulling from my experiences as a husband on the autism spectrum, as well as someone who is expecting to be a father. Last week I posted an article where I kind of shared some of the experiences of living with a pregnant wife who was also on the autism spectrum. And this week it was more delving into my experiences as someone who has Crohn's disease. And that's something that I was diagnosed with in 2017. I was diagnosed with Crohn's in 2017. I do need second sleep. And I've gone through some processes ever since then, kind of trying to figure out what is really wrong with me, what needs to be addressed, and, what kind of lifestyle do I need to adapt, to ease symptoms and everything. And I only just recently started to take it seriously. Um, I only just recently started to take it like really seriously, where I would, you know what? Hang on. Just before I get too deep into this. You know, okay. We need some music in here. Some We need some music in We need some music in here, some non-copyright music. So, anyway, it was really only just recently that I started to take take the Crohn's really, really seriously. Over the last couple of years, I've, eliminated some things from my diet. I've just kind of cut myself off from certain things, and have started exercising more often. Exercising a couple times a week. I do have triceps now, which is nice. And just doing what I can to kind of like improve the overall physical health of my body and everything, which in turn, helps with my mental health as well, as someone who deals pretty heavily with anxiety and with stress and sometimes depression. The relationship between our physical health and our mental health are very, very crucial. Duh, but it's still the truth. It's still relevant. And so I've been working on that. I've been working on my mental health lately. I volunteer at a camp for foster children, and while this week at camp was definitely one of the strongest camp weeks I've had, it was absolutely, like, it was significantly better than last time. What's funny is by the time it was over, I kind of was sad that I kind of didn't want it to end. I kind of wanted it to keep going, which is interesting. But, I was dealing with some serious mental health problems while at camp and was somehow managing to, keep up looking after my camper and, being as present and as involved as I could be. But coming back, I I kind of, sort of assessed, what was going on in my head, what I needed to tackle. And actually, after I came back, I bought a book, almost immediately after coming back, and I read that. I'll go ahead and get it. So, when I got back from camp, I got this book, Don't Believe Everything You Think, by Joseph Nguyen, and it was really, really good. It's very short. It's really, really short. If you're someone who struggles to get through long books, you will get through this book, pretty quickly. Most chapters are pretty short. They're very straightforward, and there's no secret formula necessarily. It doesn't get too heavily scientific. It's not something that you need to, it's not something that you have to think too hard about. In fact, the book even kind of warns against thinking too hard. Why your thinking is the beginning and end of suffering is what the tagline at the bottom is. Actually, it's funny. I just opened the book to a quote that I find really fascinating. That being, what we hold on to perpetuates our reality. What we let go of creates new possibilities. And I think that's pretty awesome stuff. But anyway, yes, the book really, really, really helped me with, taking better control of my mind, taking control of the thoughts that come in, and what I do with them when they come across. And I highly recommend the book for anyone who deals with serious anxiety or stress or depression, overthinking, which overthinking is something that I've really, really struggled with for a huge part of my life. Honestly, to get into like all the details about how my mind works when it comes to overthinking would probably take maybe a 10 or 12 episode series in and of itself. I am, however, working on a book, and I don't want to say too much about it, but I'm working on a book right now. It's called Salad of Emotions, and I explained the context for the title in the intro. But for now, it's called Salad of Emotions, and it's a book about how the relationship between ourselves and our past, and how we can reconcile with, the mistakes we've made, the failures we've gone through, the dark times in our lives that we've gone through. My life obviously and my past is unique. It's different from everyone else's. It's pretty easy to believe that there are other people out there who have gone through far worse experiences than I have. But I had to think about this, and that is, just because one person hasn't gone through as worse of experiences as somebody else doesn't invalidate their experiences, and it doesn't invalidate their ability or opportunity to share their story. I was homeschooled, so I was able to avoid a lot of forms of bullying. In fact, my mom actually told me recently that had I gone to public school my whole life, it's pretty clear that I would have been the subject of bullying quite a bit. I would have been bullied a lot. And I can see that. That's not hard for me to imagine. That's not hard for me to see. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating to me. As someone who was homeschooled, I've asked myself the question, would I have been the bully or the bullied one? The bully or the victim? It's hard for me exactly to say. Kind of trying to think of what else. It's probably going to be a short one. Again, I recommend Don't Believe Everything You Think. I think it's a really, really good book that tackles overthinking, anxiety, stress, depression, all that kind of stuff. I recommend it for anyone who's struggling with it. I guess one thing that I have kind of taken up recently, getting back into the rhythm of it, is reading. I used to read books all the time when I was younger. I would practically consume them. I would get through them really, really fast. And there's a lot of books I've read. Some amazing ones. And I rarely buy books. I buy a lot of movies. I'm a bit of a movie collector, but I rarely buy books because I don't often read the same books over and over again. Movies I will watch over and over again, but I won't typically read the same books over and over again. So I just kind of tend not to. Buy them because they're just gonna sit on the shelf. There are, however, a couple of books that I've bought recently. One of which I finished. The other one I am currently working on. Hang on. The book that I just recently finished was Whale Fall by Daniel Cross. Um, it's a book about a young man whose father essentially committed suicide, and their relationship was never great. They never had a good relationship. The son never felt like his father was the kind of father that he was supposed to be, or the kind of father that he should have been to his son. And in this book, he decides to dive in because they live right by the ocean or the river, the ocean, I believe. And he wants to go and retrieve his father's remains and at least prove to his family that that he cares enough about his father that he went and retrieved his remains so that he can give him a proper burial. And what ends up happening is he ends up basically in the belly of a whale, Jonah style. And throughout the book, he kind of, in order to get out of the whale, he has to rely on things that his father taught him, about the ocean, about sea creatures and all that kind of stuff. Like everything that he figured out how to do in the whale, he knew how to do it because his father taught him. And so it's interesting. It was a really interesting book. I think I'd probably give it like a 6 or 7 out of 10 overall. Maybe I'm just getting older, but I kind of wanted something that was a bit more uplifting than this book was. I wanted something that was like just a bit more uplifting, a bit more energetic. I kind of started to realize that I wanted to read more stories that really provokes the imagination, takes you to other worlds and stuff like that. Honestly, this book had more references to, current events and stuff like that than I really care for. References to COVID and stuff like that. And it's just like, I kind of want a fantasy book. So I started going through Barnes and Noble and the library and all that kind of stuff to see if there are any interesting fantasy books that I can read. You can't recommend The Lord of the Rings to me or The Hobbit because I've already read them both, love them both. I own them. I have this like amazing red hardback copy of The Lord of the Rings that I'm really happy about. And then I have The Hobbit as well as The Silmarillion, which I still yet have to finish. As, I've got The Children of Hurin, Beren and Luthien, The Fall of Gondolin, The Fall of Numenor, all that type of stuff. I love that stuff, love that lore. After going through, a couple of fantasy books and kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to read, because I'm currently working on a fantasy book right now, I did start reading Fourth Wing, which I know is a hugely popular series. I mean, the book is 2 years old at this point, and I will walk into Barnes & Noble and they'll still have stands for the Fourth Wing. They even have Fourth Wing journals now that you can, write in. It's crazy. It kind of does, in a way, feel like the next Hunger Games or Twilight or something like that. I can imagine some people are going to hear that and go, whoa, no way. This is way bigger than that. I don't know. But anyway, I'm almost 200 pages into Fourth Wing. And honestly, I haven't been impressed by it. I really, really have not been impressed with it. It has some decent writing. The author obviously has a pretty good grasp on the world building. She knows what kind of world this is. There are some issues that I have with this, though. This is a fantasy world. And for me personally, I just always find it really jarring in fantasy books when characters will use real life cursing or real world cursing or even flipping people off and stuff like that. That takes me out of the story. It really does. It literally confuses me about whether or not this is an actual fantasy world of its own, or if this is the real world in the distant future or something like that. Just centuries and centuries later, we're in this hang on, I need to go turn off the AC. the consequences of recording in the basement. Give it a minute. So, anyway, fourth wing. Once the AC finally stops, any second now. Oh, hello, Devin. Ready for Isaac Slade, September 5th? I don't know if you're going, but that's how I learned about you, dude. Hey, thanks, man, and thanks for dropping in. Wow, yeah. So I didn't even know that Isaac Slade is performing on September 5th. It's highly unlikely that I'll be able to make it, which is really sad because I would love to go to, one of Isaac Slade's solo shows. Thanks for following me on Instagram. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Where is he performing on September 5th? And are you going, Devin? I guess is a good question to ask. We were talking about Fourth Wing, but we can talk about Isaac Slade some more. I love that, man. Vashon Arts Center. Okay. Vashon Arts Center. Let's see. Oh, yeah, okay. In Vashon, Washington. Yeah, okay. Yeah, highly unlikely I'll be able to make that. Yep, 3,000 miles from New Jersey. Wow, that's awesome, man. Hey, like, I'm super glad that you're able to go. September 5th. Wow, that's incredible. I'm excited for his new for the solo album that he will eventually release. That was actually one of the goals doing the interview. That was kind of like one of my ulterior motives, was getting him to tell us whether or not he's releasing his own solo album. So I'm super excited for that. Like, I cannot wait. I will most likely be listening to that as often as I listen to the Fray's older albums. Scars and Stories, the Fray '09, How to Save a Life. The Fray was such a popular band when I was younger, obviously 2000s and everything. But in all honesty, I don't think they got the attention that they deserved, despite the fact that they played like How to Save a Life and You Found Me and what was it, Over My Head Cable Car. They would play those like millions of times on the radio, but sometimes I felt like some of their best songs were overlooked. I think some of their greatest songs ever is on Scars and Stories, and they never got, I would never hear them on the radio. Like, do you ever hear Rainy Zurich on the radio? I don't, and I think it's one of the greatest songs, like, one of the greatest pop songs I've ever heard. Yeah, I have lyrics of their song tattooed on their arm. They were my high school life, 2006 to 2010. I did a cover of Be Still. Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, Be Still is a good one. That one's actually brought me to tears a couple times. I asked Isaac in the interview, if Be Still was about God or something else completely, and to be honest, it kind of surprised me that, what his answer was surprised me, and which is cool because any music can be interpreted differently. Good music can be interpreted in different ways, and I think Isaac knocked it out of the park with that. You've never heard Rainy Zurich, nor Say When. Oh, you mean on the radio? I was about to say, dude, like, how? If you know what Be Still is, you would have to know what Rainy Zurich is. Say When is awesome. That's a great song. The sound of that song in particular is fantastic. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm laughing too. Yeah, like, Isaac was a great guy, and, like, unsurprisingly, that interview with him was the highest viewed video on my channel, and to be honest, it's going to be really, really hard to, get a video that highly viewed again. It's hard, like, trying to get a YouTube channel going, trying to go big on YouTube. It's hard to do, and you don't want to do anything that you have no passion in or no interest in. Isaac Slade interested me. So even though I primarily do a show about life and marriage on the autism spectrum, I wanted to talk to Isaac Slade. And since this is my show, I talked to Isaac. Had nothing to do with autism, but it doesn't matter. The Fray was played a huge part in my life and allowed me to connect to music in ways that most other bands have not succeeded in doing for me. Thanks, Devin. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's how most people found me. Most people found me through the interview with Isaac. I was diagnosed at 2 with Asperger's. Oh, wow. 2. Okay. Well, good. I was diagnosed at 20. June 28th, right? No, June 25th, 2015. I was diagnosed on the autism spectrum when I had just turned 20. And at that point, I had already 33. Okay, wow. I just turned 30. At that point, when I was diagnosed on the spectrum, obviously I was already done with high school at that point, so it's not like I could redo high school or anything like that. Yeah. Let's actually see here. Okay. I am becoming a dad, Devin. Yes. Yep. Found out in April and due around December. So, or around December. It's like due in December. Right at the beginning of December. My prediction is that it'll come earlier, like end of November, I think. I know I've said this before in a previous, podcast or previous blog or whatever, but you can expect me to disappear for a little bit when that happens. There's not going to be really any content. I'm going to try to kind of keep people updated on social media. I guess if there's anything, since I'm streaming right now, I guess if there's anything that I can suggest, for people watching or for people who watch later, if they really enjoyed the Isaac Slade interview, can you guys think of somebody else that you'd love to see me interview? I've tossed around a couple of ideas, but you know what? Honestly, the fact that I got to interview Isaac was seriously it was a lot of it was some serious luck. I had to, and here's the funny thing. When I got to talk to him on the phone the first time, because I just, I called his shop, and when I got to talk to him and I asked him if he'd like to do an interview with me, he was happy to do it, but he did say he was busy. It took at least 2 months before we were finally able to sit down and do it. Oh, nice, Devin. I wouldn't have considered songwriting without Isaac. Originally started about 6 years ago, writing about mental health. That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's seriously great. Yeah, it took 2 months for me and Isaac to finally sit down and talk. Well worth it in the end, obviously, but it was a struggle at first, Isaac's a busy man, and the crazy thing is, I probably wouldn't have been able to get a hold of him if I tried this 7-8 years ago. Probably wouldn't have happened. I know that at that point he was still with the Fray. He hadn't opened his shop yet. It's not like he was just a phone call away or something like that. But I think it's so crazy that hang on. Here, hang on. People are messaging me. Oh, last 2 years of setbacks. Oh yeah, I feel like my life has been nothing but having to be patient, especially for the last couple of years. Um, last year I feel like last year just felt pretty stagnant for the most part. There was the upside because like last year I finally got my associate's degree in college, which was I started for that associate's degree like 10 years ago. And then I finally finished it last year. This year I've been really, really happy with, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out the direction that I want to go with, that I want to go in my life. Like there are some visions I have. I've written them down. I've been doing I've been going through life coaching sessions, to help kind of figure that out for me. And I've done so many different things in the last year, kind of throwing a lot at the wall, seeing what sticks, and some things work out, some things don't. I published my first novel this year, but I'm making changes throughout the book right now, kind of like fixing things, cutting things, kind of doing a whole lot of like maintenance work, I guess you could say, on the book. And an updated version of it, The Glass God, will be out real soon. But for now, I haven't really been promoting it. You haven't been seeing it much in my videos or anything because I'm trying to fix it up and make it a better, more tightly paced book. So, anyway, I didn't actually... Yeah. I think there's more people out there who are willing to solve their problems than that, Devin. I think there are a lot of oh wait. Okay. I think there are more people like that. I watch Caleb Hammer, The Financial Audit. Oh, that's cool. Anger management therapy, speech pathology, work coaches. That's awesome. Yeah. I watch The Financial Audit, Caleb Hammer, and it is cool because there are a lot of videos in that channel where you can tell that people really, really wanted to change, their finances and stuff like that. It's really cool. Anyway, I'm going to actually cut this one shorter. Guess I can finish talking about Fourth Wing later. Actually, it would be kind of fun to write a review and even like record a review of me doing Fourth Wing, the first book in that dragon series, which I picked it up. I thought it was going to be like basically How to Train Your Dragon but for adults, and it's different from that. It's definitely a little bit different from that. I wasn't too impressed with the first like 150 Yeah, hey, no problem, Devin. You have a good day. Yeah, I'll be wrapping this up here in a few minutes. But the first, like, 150 pages or so is just, it just feels like high school melodrama, even though this is supposed to be an adult book. And the author sure loves to remind you that this is for adults while simultaneously feeling like high school melodrama. Very little to do with dragons in the first 150 pages, but, at one point, the main character, who's also just really unlikable, she eventually gets chosen, by a big dragon, as well as a second dragon, and once you reach that point, it's picking up, it's getting a little bit better, it's more interesting. I really wish the first 150, 160 pages were, equally as interesting. I don't really believe that it's valid to say, I don't really believe that it's valid to go, oh, well, it gets good by page 150, and I don't want that to be the writer's perspective either. It's either good from the beginning or it isn't. And even if it gets good later, at that point, you've lost the reader. And I'll be honest with you, one of the only reasons why I'm still reading it is because I bought it. I didn't even get it at the library. I bought it. I thought, because, when I buy books, it helps my motivation to read them because I spent money on them, you know, like, as opposed to getting them at the library where it's like, well, I just got this for free. You know, it's no skin off my nose if I take it back without finishing it. But at least if I buy it, then I feel like I must finish it. And so I bought Fourth Wing. And honestly, I went in super excited. I was super excited to be swept up in this world, whatever it was. I was super excited to kind of like learn what this world was all about and just kind of like become immersed, almost like this pure escapism, you know, because it's so hard to find, you know, stuff that's like real escapism, you know, in movies and books and stuff like that. And I felt let down by the first couple of chapters. I really did. And now that the main character is bonded to this dragon, it's like, okay, it's a little bit more interesting now. We'll see where this goes. But yeah, anyway, that's my assessment of Fourth Wing so far. And again, I might like record or write a review for, you know, Fourth Wing once I'm done with it. And for the next couple of weeks, you can expect to see a new article from my Substack at thepancakeking.substack.com. Again, I'm kind of going for more comedy-driven stuff. Also, I will also be doing more live streams on this channel as opposed to videos in order for my priorities to stay on top of fixing and editing my book. That right there is the number one priority, and this ended up being second. So I'm going to be doing more live streams because it requires less editing, it requires less maintenance work, it requires less days. But I will be doing more videos in the future. When exactly, I don't know for sure. However, I do know that I want to take some of the articles that I wrote and turn those into videos. So you can expect that pretty soon. Other than that, I'm glad that I was able to do this for a short time. I will be doing it again, potentially even next week. Again, if you're listening, Devin, it was a pleasure to interact with you and to talk more about the Fray and Isaac Slade and about writing and all that kind of stuff. Check out my Substack at thepancakeking.substack.com. And also you can check out mine and my wife's other channel, Vanzot Mediums. VANZOT Mediums, where we read Star Wars books, essentially. We just started the third book in the Jedi Academy trilogy, Champions of the Force. And with all that being said, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.